simple, like to go back to my usual thing about the gazelles. So let's say that the gazelles want to eat, and one gazelle thinks that the food is in this direction, and the other gazelle thinks the food is in that direction. So if they both go in different directions, then they are both going to be isolated and then unsafe. Or, both, I'm saying individuals or part of the herd, whatever. But the bottom line is, it's sticking together makes you safe because you have social support. So it's that safety of social support, which is oxytocin. And we have to be honest that it's selfish because I want the herd to feel safe. And that's why we all have this frustrating choice between the independent path that may seem like a straighter path to resources and sticking with the herd that does not always agree with your straight path to resources. So the simple solution in my brain is, well, the whole herd should do what I want, because then I'll have the herd, but I'll also have the direct path to resources. And that's why it's so hard to get anything done. And that is our challenge as humans, because we can visualize our own more direct path to resources. So we think, well, obviously this would be more effective. And Raphael, I know this is exactly your story, but in fact, another coincidence, guess what? I'm listening to a new audiobook by the founder of, excuse me, the founder of Netflix. And I love reading these company founding stories because it's always like 1,000 times harder than you could ever have imagined. So the title of the Netflix book, it's called That Will Never Work. Isn't that a great title? And you can imagine. Now, the bottom line is when I think, oh, this will work, and we should all do this because obviously this is so much better. And then the other person thinks, that's crazy, that will never work. Now, sometimes the person has a good reason, and other times it's just a power play and they want you to do it their way. So the whole point of the communication classes that Sigrid is talking about is that you put yourself into the mind of the other person, and then you show them that you have really thought through the reasons for their preference and really take their preference seriously. And if you want someone to be willing to work with you, whether it's a marriage or a company or something else, an alliance, you have to really have them believing that you are listening to their perspective. But the bottom line is always that maybe one person does have better information or better judgment. And maybe the other person is willing, and maybe the other person is not willing. So the simple solution is, if we have simple word for it, is division of labor, where we say, you have better judgment on X and I have better judgment on Y. So I will tend to go along with you on X and you will tend to go along with me on Y. And marriages often work this way, where one person tends to give in on one issue and the other person tends to give in on another issue, partly because they have better judgment and partly because they have maybe more fear circuits around that. But the other answer is, if you find a new alternative that can please both of you. So it's like, instead of just thinking there's only this strategy or that strategy, we can generate new alternatives where we can both get what we want. And that would be dopamine. So to answer the question, in addition to the serotonin and oxytocin, is also the dopamine that I believe that we can get something done, that we can get to the goal with this new strategy, rather than just seeing the other person as an obstruction, okay? So Raphael asks, and of course, the inevitable question, who defines who is better for a task? If you say, well, you're better at this and I'm better at that. So obviously, the person who's giving up power has to agree that the other person is better, or if their ego won't allow them to say that, they have to at least trade, to say, I'll trade you. If I let you make these decisions and I make those decisions, maybe take out the word better, okay? If you have people who are being very competitive, and just say, if you go toward the decisions in this area, and I'll go toward the decisions in that area, and even maybe next year we could trade jobs. But you may be thinking, well, next year I don't want to trade jobs because this person has bad judgment in that area. I don't know in your case. But if you divide up the labor and they feel like they've gotten something, like we will, and this is the famous examples of this. First, there are books on negotiation. And these books on marital negotiations started with arms negotiations, which means when Russians and Americans had a lot of missiles and trying to negotiate down the number of missiles. So I was studying some of that when I was in college. So if you read any of the classic books about negotiation, that making the other person believe that they've gotten something from you. Oh, you know what? That's also in the Chinese book, The Art of War by Lao Tzu. I think Craig would know about this. But negotiation so that the other person feels like they've gotten something so valuable. And sometimes there's some, Raphael, you could probably think of some examples of this, some strategy involved in making the person think that they've gotten something big by being in charge of X and you're in charge of Y. To learn more about your happy chemicals and help others find this valuable information, click the thumbs up and subscribe to the Inner Mammal Institute channel. To get a free 5-day happy chemical jumpstart guide, opt in at the Inner Mammal Institute website, innermammalinstitute.org. Thanks.